here with us. We're so honored to have all of you here tonight with us. This is part one of a 6-part webinar series, which is a collaboration between the upper extremity SIG and the sports SIG for AAOMPT. So please join our ones in the future as well. Tonight, we're honored to have Angela Gordon here with us. She has an incredibly prolific career in physical therapy and is a real trailblazer within our profession. So, you know, incredibly admirable resume, and so excited to hear more about it tonight. So Angela, why don't we get started with just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Oh man, that's a lot. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're so excited to have everyone here and to join forces with the Sports SIG. If you hadn't known, the Upper Extremity SIG is new this year, and feel free to look more into it through AAOMPT. But part of my background and where I got started in PT was not in the upper extremity or baseball. When I first came out of PT school, my love for PT was all driven by the female athlete, and I did a bunch of stuff and research in the female athlete when I first graduated PT school. And I actually trademarked an ACL prevention program within the first couple of years of graduating PT school. So I was, you know, head first into ACL and female athletes. And as an athlete in myself, and having been an athlete through college, that was really my first love and passion. And then all of a sudden I got thrown into the world of baseball, not really knowing much about it. So it was an incredible opportunity and blessing that I had no idea would pave the way to where I am today. So the story goes that when I was 2 years out of PT school, I had trademarked my ACL program when I was working with sports. I'm also a certified athletic trainer, so I was working in the local high schools in addition to working full-time as a PT. And the Washington Nationals baseball team came back to DC, and they had a medical group that was working with them. We hadn't had any owners at that time, but they were in need of having physical therapy services. So through the grapevine, the medical director that was assigned to the team was a mentee of Dr. Andrews out of Birmingham. And so he called him, and Dr. Andrews was the chair for our company. He was like the medical director for our company. And so he started putting feelers out for PTs in the DC area that were involved in sports. And somehow my name came across the board. I mean, I was 2 years out of PT school, so I'm not even sure how I even got placed in the bucket for this job. But the doc came to me and said, "Are you interested in doing this job and helping me with the team?" And I said, "Well, I don't know anything about baseball. I'm all my sports experience is all female athlete." And he's like, "Well, you seem like a good PT. You'll figure it out." I was like, "Well, that's really incredibly trusting, but I really know nothing about baseball." So I started working with the team very loosely, and the guys that were on the DL would just come into the clinic. And I had my first post-op picture that he sent my way, and he called me up one day and he said, and this was a new doctor too, he had just come out of residency and fellowship, so he was paving his way too, and he was trying to make a name for himself. So there was a lot of pressure on him, and a lot of trust he put in me, which was incredibly grateful for that he did that. But he called me up and he said, "This guy just had a rotator cuff and labral surgery, and it's a $6 million arm. And in so many words that I won't say right now, he's basically said, don't screw it up." And I was like, okay, I don't know that I want to do baseball. This is too much pressure. But that was my intro to baseball. And that was in 2005. So eventually the team got bought by the Lerner Group, and they brought in a new medical team. And that medical team, unfortunately, was on a different plane that I didn't really agree with. So I decided not to continue with the PT at that point. And I still followed the other medical the orthopedic surgeon. So I spent the next 4 years working with him, alongside him. You know, we did a bunch of little league stuff. We did a bunch of college stuff. We treated a ton of different types of athletes and just kept our foot in the door with the sports world. And then in 2009, they asked the doctor to come back as the medical director. And he came to me and wanted me to be the PT again, but unfortunately I was pregnant with my first son. And that was the first year I had gotten married. I had entered the doctorate program from Andrews University. I started my certification process with NAIOMT to do my COMT. And I was pregnant and I was due in May. And I was like, there's just no way I could do that. So he wasn't very pleased with me at that moment, but he totally understood. And then the following year, the PT that they did hire got fired because it's a very cutthroat business. Like your contracts are just yearly. You get renewed on a yearly basis. So you're always fighting to keep your contract. So the next year he came back and he didn't really ask. He told me I was going to do the job. So I went back and started working with the team. And the contract kind of grew yearly. It was contracted for several weeks of PT during spring training, half of all home games, and then full-time travel with the team during playoff seasons. And so I started back in 2010 and carried through with them through the end of the 2015 season. And during that time, I was finishing my doctorate, doing my certifications. I had 3 boys and running a clinic and then working as a team PT. So it was an incredibly busy time to say the least.
I'm always in awe just hearing that. Like, just one of those things is a lot to handle. All of them combined, you're a superhero for sure.
Well, you know, I think part of it was actually a blessing in disguise, because as I was doing my doctorate and my learning my manual certification and learning all these new techniques and things, part of it was wonderful because I didn't have time to think. I didn't have time to contemplate whether I was doing things right or wrong, or what am I feeling? What am I not feeling? You know, when the guys came in the clubhouse and they had an hour to get on the field and I had 5 guys waiting for me to treat them and get them ready to go out on the field, I had to like treat and go and treat and reassess, and did it work, did it not, try something else. And it made me very quick on my feet, and it really honed in my clinical reasoning and differential diagnosis skills, because I didn't have time to sit around and, contemplate things. So I think that was probably a very big blessing in disguise when I was able to just keep moving quick and, be effective.
Angela, I think we're curious to know, paint a picture of what it's like being in the locker room or in the training room and the MLB as a PT. What is that like in our role?
For a while there, I was the only female in PT. There was no other females in PT. I, believe it or not, it was a brand new stadium that the Nats had built. And for me to get to a woman's restroom, I had to walk a half a mile around the building. So the majority of the time I used the ground crew bathroom because it was right around the corner, because I didn't really have time to go walk a half mile, which was astonishing to me that they couldn't put a women's restroom in a major league clubhouse. But it just wasn't heard of. I was like one of only females. And then Sue Falsone came in as an athletic trainer during the years that I was there too. So then it was 2 of us women in PT. So it wasn't made up a situation that was conducive for females to be in there. But I had been used to being in a training room, because when I was in college, I was the head athletic trainer, head student athletic trainer for a football team and a Division III school. So, I was used to the clubhouse, the training rooms, environment. So I was very comfortable there. But it certainly did present its challenges. The guys, for the most part, were respectful. They did, when I was around, they weren't necessarily running around naked all the time, and they kind of kept things a little chill. But there were moments that I'd turn around and be like, oh, okay, I don't want to look that way for a moment. But there was, and a lot of the guys, I was having kids and I had my babies, and they were respectful. And a lot of them were having families and starting off their families at the time too. So there was, they were for the most of the part respectful, I would say. I still ran into my fair share of, kind of biases that happen that you just kind of have to if I wanted to make it in the business, I kind of just had to close my ears and turn the other way and just ignore whatever I could to survive.
I'm sure being one of the first females in that realm definitely had its challenges. So what do you think set you up for success being a woman and kind of being a trailblazer in that regard?
You kind of have to know your environment, and you have to know how to navigate it and not piss people off, essentially, because everybody in the medical field that is in the teams, they're on yearly contracts and you're all fighting for your jobs. The athletic trainers have to move up rank, like from minor league all the way up to make it to major league, just like the players do. So they fought very hard to get to their position, and they don't want somebody coming in and overstepping them and telling them what to do, and judging them, or disagreeing with their treatment plan. So you have to kind of know your audience, and thankfully I understood that realm, being an athletic trainer myself, and I kind of understood, hey, look, even though I'm a PT and they're athletic trainers, they have much more experience in the world. Even though I have a higher degree, it didn't put me above them. I had to follow the chain of command. I had to do my part. And then what I realized, because the female that was there before me got fired after a year, she didn't survive. I just had to let my skills and let what I do show them the benefit. Like, me talking about it and me telling them things wasn't going to cut it. Like, if I treated an athlete and they got better and they trusted me and they kept coming back to me and that word spread, that trust grew, and then the trainers trusted me, and then it just became more and more of a nice flow to the training room. And then after a few years of building those relationships and earning that trust from all of them, I was then able to bridge the gap between, here's just the medical team and the athletic trainers, and here's just the strength team. Let's bridge the gap between them and start trying to get them to work together so that we can put in injury prevention programs and start coordinating what the athletic trainers are overloaded and can't do. Let's train the strength people and have them do it. So that was something I was super proud that we were actually able to get to a point where we could integrate the medical care across all boards in the team.
That's awesome. And that's so imperative for, successful outcomes, is just that, working as a team, interdisciplinary teamwork, and just the whole continuum of care for the athlete. We can't operate in silos in the sports medicine world by any means. So that's awesome. We're able to accomplish that.
It wasn't even just athletic trainers and strength coaches. We had chiropractors, we had, massage therapists, we had everybody in there. So it was like, okay, well, how do we all fit in, and how do we all work together, and how do we all amplify and use our specific skill sets, and we stay in our lanes, but everybody works together and everybody gets along. So it was a challenging time, but I think once you kind of figure out how to operate in that world and earn their trust by doing it, I ended up being very successful at that.
That's amazing. And tell us, how do you feel? You're a fellow, and so tell us how you feel like your fellowship training set you up for success in that world.
Well, actually, my fellowship training came afterwards. I didn't do the fellowship while I was there. So I did my DSC, and I then did my COMT as part of the DSC. So I got my certifications, and then I ended up not doing the fellowship at the time, because unfortunately at the time I had gotten some bad advice, and someone had told me it wasn't worth me doing it. And so I kind of was, at the end of my doctorate, and kind of burned out from school and doing all the training, and just quite frankly tired. So I trusted that advice and said it wouldn't really help me any further in my career, so I didn't do it. And I didn't go back to finish my fellowship until 2018.
What led you to, obviously you were incredibly successful before 2018, so it would be real easy for someone to, outside looking in, be like, oh, you don't need that, Angela. You already are successful enough. What are you getting that for? So what led you to change your mind and continue to pursue your fellowship training at that point?
Well, everything I had done up to that point was like 75% of my fellowship. I mean, the majority of it was already done. I had to go back and do some more one-on-one hours and, finish up a few of the curriculum. But if I had to do it over again, I would have done my fellowship right out of the gate from the start, because I think that the value that I received in my fellowship and my DSC training was the ability to differentially diagnose and clinically reason. And it helped me learn how to quickly look at these athletes as a whole and take a step back and not chase pain, really kind of get to the bottom and the root of their problem and understand the mechanics of the entire chain so that I could keep them healthy and prevent any further damage from coming.
Do you have a favorite story or like career win from a PT standpoint of a really challenging patient, and you used your clinical reasoning skills, and perhaps like other therapists had seen the patient or athlete, couldn't figure out what was going on, and then you were the one to be Sherlock Holmes and kind of, just totally figure it out and make that person better?
Yeah. So, I mean, we all have those stories, and in the clinic, we are all going to have those successes. But I think the one that stands out the most for me, which was the most challenging, was in the world, just trying to earn the trust of all the coaches and the manager and the trainers and stuff. It took me a while. And I had been rehabbing one guy early on from a hip injury. And I was teaching him how to just rotate his hips and do different drills with the hip rotation. So, because he was a pitcher and he needed to be able to rotate. Well, he took that information back to the pitching coach at the Nationals, and they took it as I was changing his mechanics. And I was like, I got walked into the clubhouse full on 6'5" dude standing over me, just reaming me a new one because I was changing someone's mechanics. And I was like, I didn't do anything. I just taught him how to rotate his hips. I swear I didn't do anything. So that was my mission with that pitching coach, was to earn his trust and to have him accept the skills that I have and how I could help him. As I don't want to teach, the pitchers how to improve their pitching. I just want to teach them how to not to get hurt. And I mean, understanding the mechanics is a huge part of that. So it took me a couple years, but then one of our pitchers injured his ankle in spring training, and he came out of the gate early in the season and started having shoulder pain. And he kept telling the pitching coach that his arm slot is off. He can't figure it out. The arm slot was out of whack. He can't get where he was. And every time he's throwing, his pain in the shoulder is getting worse and worse. And the trainers had been dealing with the shoulder pain, and it just wasn't getting any better. And so the pitching coach called me and he said, can you come in? And it wasn't a day I was scheduled to come in. He's like, I need you to come in. I need you to look at him, and I need you to find out what's wrong with him. So I went in, and of course I was middle of a clinic day, and I was like, I'm out. I'm in. I'm going. This guy's called me. Finally trust me. I'm out. So I go in and I do take a thorough, I could just take a step back and talk through the whole history and when it started, what had happening. And I remember he had sprained his ankle. And so I did a whole screen, checked from head to toe, looked at the whole balance of his mechanics. We watched him in the bullpen. I looked at video. And then I was like, you don't have full range of motion in your ankle, do you? And he's like, no. And I was like, does that still hurt? He's like, no, it's just stiff. So I looked at his ankle, and I ended up manipulating the ankle and got his dorsiflexion range of motion back. And he went out on the field, and his arm slot came right back. So that was my coolest story ever.
That's the ultimate compliment, to finally earn the pitching coach's trust and then to go and just be a wizard like that and fix it.
So everyone always has that one weird story, and I was like, wow, that was really, I was like a shot in the dark. I didn't know if it was going to help or not, but I was like, cool, it helped.
We had some awesome comments from the crowd. Margot said, mic drop. But that's amazing. And I mean, that just goes to show how important it is to look at the body as a kinetic chain. And then of course, shout out to manual skills right there, quick fix, and, back there he goes back on the field. So that's incredible. Yeah. What would you say, Angela, just to change gears a little bit? I know a lot of people here admire where you're at and everything. And what advice would you give to people trying to get into professional sports or trying to get into fellowship, or perhaps even, owning their own practice? What would you say are your top 3 keys of advice?
I just think being a good PT is number one, right? Your skills and your outcomes are going to speak more than any words you can even, put out there. If you are successful and your patients are getting better and you're just generally a good PT and understand the body, understand the why. I always tell fellows that I'm mentoring and PTs that I'm mentoring, anybody can treat symptoms, anybody can chase pain, right? You're going to be a different PT that's going to stand out, and people are going to want to come to you and seek your skills if you figure out the why, especially with, and sometimes it's not even the glorified like professional athletes. Some of my like most, fun days are just helping everyday people, just when they finally aren't in pain anymore, or somebody figures out why they're having the problem. To me, that's the most rewarding thing. And in terms of like getting into professional sports, I mean, people ask me this all the time. I see so many people trying so hard to get into the sports world, and they just think they have to be, utilizing the cool, sexy exercises or the cool, sexy techniques and what's the new fad. But what it comes down to is earning the trust of the players. And you do that by having really good clinical reasoning skills. And half of the battle is just remembering the basics. A lot of people skip over the basics and they don't remember just basic principles of how the body moves and the physics of the body. So I think, it's not always about the fun, fancy things that you're going to do. It's about being smart and doing the things that no one else is doing.
That's great. Yeah. And all the cool, sexy exercises are pretty worthless if you don't actually know what's the underlying reason of what's going on.
And if you don't set up the body for success, if you're doing big, dynamic, fun, sexy exercises, if you haven't stabilized or, focused on all the static stability around any joint, then you're not going to be able to make any progress with their condition.
Yeah, absolutely. Angela, you've had an amazing career, put in your time and really accomplished a lot, all the way from, being one of the first women in professional baseball to publishing a chapter of a textbook to owning your own clinic. And gosh, you've worked with Hollywood celebrities even, you've told me. So what would you say, like, you've done so much and you still continue to thrive. So what would you tell young Angela, starting out in her PT world before all of this happened? What would you tell yourself to do differently?
It's a hard balance. I don't know. I never really even imagined that I would be where I'm at right now. Like, I never imagined I would have the career in baseball that I had. It was never like on a checklist that I ever dreamed I would ever do. It just, I feel like I've been extremely blessed, and, the good Lord has directed me in the ways that, like, I feel like I've been able to handle that success and move in different directions I never believed I would even be in. And I think I have an incredibly supportive family and an incredibly supportive husband. So I couldn't do the things I have today if I didn't have the support that I have. And I haven't had the support of colleagues that I've had along the way, and the assistance of, I had, the PT that helped me with the Nats and is now my co-owner with the team. I mean, we just forming the relationships and the partnerships and, leaning on people that you need to lean on to get things done. And I think any mom out there is going to say, it's hard being a mom, and sometimes you just do it because you got to get it done. And that's kind of how I felt like when I had to do it. I needed to do it. I needed to get it done, and I did it. And it was hard. It was super stressful. Working with the team, there were many, many days that I missed out on the kids and had total mom guilt and not being there. But would I change it? I don't think so, because the rewards that I got from it were so great. And, my kids all of my children now, I have all boys, and their love of baseball is incredible. So I don't know that I would change anything.
They probably have you to thank for that, right?
Yeah, it's all my fault. So when I'm sitting at like 3 doubleheaders every Sunday, I only have myself to blame for that.
So this is a question I'd have. So are you able to turn the PT brain off when you're at the baseball field with your kids, or are you like watching them and analyzing their mechanics?
Well, I mean, you know, a lot of times we joke because I've felt like I went from the major leagues down to the minor leagues. I kind of did the reverse order, and then I kind of had to learn how to like work back up. But you know, a lot of our friends and that we in the baseball world, like their teams and our community, they all know who I am now, and they come to us and come to my husband and they ask our advice, and because he's a PT too. So you know, we're actively involved in their teams all the time. We're helping the kids with pitching mechanics. We're helping them in, you know, with their bullpens. We're at practices, you know, helping the teams do better, you know, warm-ups, and getting rid of a lot of the stupid little league drills that we've seen that like injure people. So to me, I want to still be able to spread my knowledge and help the teams and help the league and make it a better, safer environment for all the kids. So I can't turn it off.
I can see that. I mean, even just watching people walk in the mall, I can't turn off look at their gait.
Yes, you just don't. I mean, it's just ingrained in us. You just can't, right?
Do your kids listen to you if you give them advice? I feel like families never listen.
For the most part, they're pretty good. My older one's really cute. He's 14 now, and he'll come up and he'll, you know, say, "Mom, you got to go fix Noah's mechanics."
Maybe a future PT in training also.
Yeah. So
Angela, what's next in your professional world?
I feel like I've done so much already in my career. Now I get to like enjoy it. I get to like enjoy the success of the clinic. I get to have a super flexible schedule. I can teach when I want to teach. I can be home with the kids more. And I feel like it's super important now because, you know, these are more influential years for them as they get older. Starting, my oldest will be a freshman in high school next year. So I get to enjoy being home with them more. So I really enjoy that right now.
That's really special. That's awesome. And I think we do have a question from the audience in here, so I'll go ahead and pull it up. So we have a question from Diana, and she said, so what is your secret to maintaining balance while still pushing forward? And I think you've kind of shed light on that, and that you have an incredible support system at home, but any other secrets for people who are trying to be like you and accomplish multiple things at once, maybe if they don't have a support system at home?
Yeah, you know, and a lot of females I think face the same situation, and it's hard. There are barriers that, you know, it just is what it is, and there's no right or wrong answer to this. There's just barriers that females still have to break through, and we have to get, you know, we have to adjust our lives differently. And you know, I did not have a very good ability to say no. And so it got incredibly stressful towards the end with the baseball team. And ultimately that's why I left, because the team, the players started calling me at all hours. They started showing up at my clinic at all hours of the day. It was extremely disruptive. It was extremely, I mean, I couldn't even have like a dinner out and have a drink without getting called in. And so it just got extremely stressful. And I just, at some point, I was just like, I have to stop. It's just too much. And I've gotten the value from this that I really, and I'm super grateful and thankful for the experience, but there had to be, and I was, you know, at that point in my career where, you know, baseball, I wasn't going to be with the team forever. I was a contractor, right? It was, you know, every year striving to renew my contract. And ultimately I wanted to open my own clinic and spread my knowledge and open a different type of therapy and do the things that I have never been able to do from the constraints of big companies and time constraints of never having the time. So I had to stop, and it was a good timing for me to do that. But just know your limits, and never be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. I mean, there were plenty of times that I was super nervous and uncomfortable and didn't know if I was, but I had to fake it to make it. And I think we do that a lot with patients, right? If we don't know something, where we fake it until we can have a time to go look it up. And so I think knowing your limits, and just don't be afraid to go for it.
Angela, I think one of my favorite stories about you leaving your comfort zone is the time that you worked with a Hollywood celebrity. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh. So that was kind of fun. We got a call one day, and through the work with the Nationals, they always, part of my contracts is they had to put press releases out. So like, if you Google me, like the press releases are there. So my name comes up as, a sports PT. Well, one day we got a call from a production company, and they said they were looking for PTs to be on set while they were filming a film in DC. And we were like, okay, sure. And it was very vague. They wouldn't give us any information. We're like, okay, well, find out X, Y, and Z, and then let us know. Sure enough, they called back the next day. They gave us more information. And then we're like, okay, well, can you tell us anything more? Like, who's this for? How much does it pay? What are the hours? Like, where are we going to be, like, on set? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I'd have to talk to the producers. We're like, okay. So the next day, and they would persistent. They called every day and just gave us a little bit more information every day. And then eventually we signed an NDA. And eventually they were like, we can't directly tell you who you're going to be working with and what the film is, but if you Google it right now, you'll see which film is being filmed in DC starting next week. And we're like, okay. So we did, and it was Wonder Woman 1984. And we're like, this can't be real. Like, how did they find us? Like, what? I don't understand. So the next day they called, and they're like, and they only wanted female PTs, which I had to negotiate my co-owner, who's a male, because we just didn't have enough staff to cover it. So they wanted me to go down and treat Gal. And I was like, okay. So it was like so bizarre. They're like, show up at this hotel at this time. This man will meet you. And they'll escort you to her room. So I did, showed up at the hotel, man escorted me, went up the back elevator, chugging up with all my stuff. And I was like, I don't know what to bring. I don't know what I'm treating. I don't know what's happening. This is so bizarre. And I'm like, sure if I'm going to die. So I get into the penthouse, and they put me in a room, and they're like, set up here. And I was like, okay. And then 10 minutes later, in walks Gal. And I was like, oh, this is actually real. I can't believe this. But she was super amazing. She was super cool, super down to earth. And I talked to her, treated her for an hour, and I left. And then my phone started blowing up. Like, the producers started calling me, her personal assistant, all these people kept asking me, how did it go? And I'm like, why are you asking me? Why aren't you asking her? I could say it was fabulous, but she could say it was horrible. And then I was like, oh, this was a working interview. This is how this was going. I was like, I got this now. So then an hour later, the producers called, and influx of paperwork and contracts and information, all the information we've been trying to get for like a week. They didn't want to do any of that until they knew for sure that she liked us. So we spent the next 6 weeks on set with her. We treated her, Kristen Wiig, and it was the most bizarre, incredible experience.
That's so cool. Yeah, I bet that's one of those things where you looking back like, wow, I would have never imagined I would be working on a Hollywood set as a PT, but that's really cool.
And the movie sucked, but we got our names in the credits. So.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's really, really fun. I think we do have a couple more questions. So I am going to go back to the chat. Let's see. So we have from Bill, let's see. How do you carve out your role as a manual PT, especially when working with the chiro, ATC, and massage therapist? And I'm assuming that means when you were working with the nationals. That's a great question because, you know, as a manual therapist, we do a lot of similar things to what chiropractors do. And of course, there's a lot of similarities between what we do with, you know, ATs, and even sometimes we're doing massage therapy in a certain way, shape, or form. So that could overlap with the massage therapist. So can you delineate or at least like illustrate a little bit more on how that worked out and what you did as far as a PT?
It can be very challenging to blend those worlds together for sure. Thankfully, I don't like standing there and massaging a lot. I'd much rather just needle it and move on. So if anything needed really massaged for a while, I'd be like, go see the massage therapist. And she was amazing. And the chiropractor was actually really amazing too. He was on the same, thankfully, very much on the same like wavelength as me. He wasn't very just like a crack and pop and move on kind of guy. He did a lot of other things. And, you know, we worked well together, and he respected my manual skills, and he knew I could manipulate, and he knew my manipulation was different than his manipulation. And because of the size of the guys and the size of me, I was very trusting in his manipulation skills too, because I saw him work and I saw how effective he was. So if there was something that I was working on, I just couldn't get it, I would send him to go see the chiropractor, because we were able to work that relationship. And, you know, the chiropractor very much was the same way. If there was something he didn't want to do or wasn't comfortable with, he said, you know, Angela can do that, just go see Angela. And so we actually worked really well together. And a lot of the guys would see both of us at the, you know, one right after each other. And we both had our slightly different skill set, and we both kind of knew our lane. And so we kind of worked a little bit differently, but was able to really coordinate that together. And I think it was really cool to be able to work with a chiropractor and have the chiropractor really understand our skill set as a PT, and know that like, we're not just exercise, like we actually have manual skills, and we can do manipulation. So that was really nice to be able to do that. So that relationship actually worked out really well for us.
That's great. Now, is that something that, like, coming right into it, the chiropractor already had a great understanding, or is that something that you all had to grow and foster together?
We had to grow and foster together. And it grew and fostered enough that when I opened my own PT clinic, he opened a second location of his facility on the second floor. So we work together. We still cross refer patients, and we still see, you know, we still do a bunch of stuff together. So it's been great.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I volunteer with the Houston Rodeo Sports Medicine Committee, and it's chiropractors, massage therapists, ATs, and PTs all in the same room. And it actually is great to have everyone together, because like you said, you do get to see everyone's skill set, and then you can figure out, you know, who's going to benefit from which discipline the most at certain times. And, you know, everyone can work together super effectively. So it's definitely a wonderful experience to have everyone there together. Going back to the chat, I think we did have maybe one or two more questions. Bill said, you should also let people know that you're an outstanding manual therapy teacher for NAIOMT.
Thanks, Bill. That was the other endeavor I did after I graduated, or after I left the nationals. I finished my fellowship, and under the guidance of several wonderful people at NAIOMT, I got my fellowship done, and then became an instructor for NAIOMT. So I really enjoy the teaching aspect now too, and sharing that knowledge with other PTs. And I like the fact that I can take the experiences that I have, and I can share those to help other people navigate their new career and world. And I also decided that, you know, all the things that we learned through working with baseball and, you know, just a bunch of different overhead athletes, there was just such a need in our whole profession to understand the overhead athlete better. So I took a lot of what I've learned and put it into a course. And now I also teach that course through NAIOMT and have it online as well. So I feel it's really a lot of fun to be able to share all that knowledge now.
For anyone interested, are we able to access that course online?
Yes, you can access it online. It's sportsacademy.thinkofic.com, and then the live course is one of the specialty courses through NAIOMT, and it's called the Advanced Concepts of the Overhead Athlete.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure there would be many people interested in looking at that after hearing everything that you've done tonight. So definitely something I'm going to check out too. Going back to the chat, we have another question from David Delata. He says, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Can you elaborate on how you utilize your PT and ATC expertise in your practice? Were there specific cases where you felt you had to act as one profession over the other, or would you say that you fused the two together in your clinical practice?
I think I utilize both of them. I think, the athletic training background that I have and the emergency acute care aspect from the athletic training world was very helpful for me in navigating the ins and outs of the athletic training room and the clubhouse for the team. And in the clinic, it's, I can coordinate with the athletic trainers better. I can have the conversations with them, and I understand their limitations, what they can handle, what they can't handle. And I respect, the 500 athletes that they have to see on a daily basis. So, I'm able to like take off the PT hat and go to community events and put on the athletic training hat and be there as a first responder. So, and even my kids, kids stuff, when I go and somebody gets hurt, like it's not something I shut up. I just jump up and I'm ready to go out on the field and like take care of the kid, because that's just my athletic training background in me. I just running out there. So,
never turn that one off either, right?
That one doesn't turn off, right? Never. Yeah. But I think both skill sets have served me well throughout the year, and I've definitely have been fully blessed by being able to utilize both skill sets.
For PTs who are looking to get into professional or college sports, do you think that it's a necessary prerequisite to have the athletic training background, or do you feel like you can still be successful without it?
I think you can still be successful without it. I generally tell people, go volunteer. Go into an athletic training room, go to your local high schools, go on the field, volunteer so that you understand. Because, we can't have egos when we go into training rooms. We can't have egos in the college world or the professional world. Like you have to learn to work with everybody. And if you come in with an ego that you're better than everyone else and more, you're not going to be successful. You just won't. You have to prove yourself by showing your skills and not having an ego and talking about them. So if you get into that world and volunteer and understand really how it works and what the stresses that they are under, and just be there to help and offer services, it'll be that experience will serve you well.
Absolutely. I have so much respect for athletic trainers, because man, do they handle an incredible amount of work all at one time.
Oh yeah.
It's wild. And then the long hours on top of that. So they definitely.
Yeah. And the last thing they want is some like PT coming in there telling them what they're doing wrong. I mean, anybody would be mad about that.
I know. And I think like as PTs, we get stressed when we have like 2 or 3 patients at a time. Like try having 15 people needing your help all at once, and you have 30 minutes to do it, or you have an hour to treat the whole team, like you said, before a game. So it can be incredibly stressful. Talk about not having time to think, right?
Right. And I think that's part of my athletic training background. It serves me well in the clinic, is the ability to multitask with a bunch of different things going on at one time, right? Because that's what you do as an athletic trainer. There's always something happening and multiple things, and you're, putting out fires for 10 different athletes.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Angela, we have another question from the chat. It's from Bailey Duckett. She said, I'm going into my last year of PT school this next month. What advice would you have for a new grad who wants a career in sports, as well as growing my manual skills?
Don't stop learning. Just soak up everything that you can. And, a lot, unfortunately, as I've gone through my career, I've interacted and managed and hired and mentored tons of different PTs, but The one thing that, always strikes me kind of off is the fact that when new PTs come out and they come into, like, they want to be hired by us and work in the sports world, and they get into the clinic and they just expect everything to be handed to them. They just expect the patients. I had one PT that just got hired and it's like, okay, well, when do I get to work with the nationals? Like, you don't. Like, you have not earned a single ounce of, time to, worth that. But the time I put in on my own, the amount of time I volunteered, the amount of stuff that I did, on my free time to just make a name for myself before I even got, and that's probably how I got my name thrown in the mix was, I was an athletic trainer. I went to, I volunteered at community events. I offered, free seminars. I educated little leagues. I, was on the field for free covering football games. I went out and I wasn't married at the time and I had the free time. So I volunteered and I didn't expect to be paid in return. I didn't expect, someone to hand me anything. I think if you really want to be in sports and you really want that career, you've got to earn it and you've got to put the time in. And you can't expect somebody just to hand it to you because it's just not going to happen that way. And I don't think a lot of PTs understand that if you want to make a name for yourself, you've got to get yourself out there. And a lot of it's just going to be on your own time.
Yeah, I can agree with that 100%. I have had the same experience, like anytime wanting to get in the sports world. I did a sports residency, but once you graduate from that, it's still going to be a lot of grassroots effort and getting your name out in the community. And like you said, seminars to market for you, market for the hospital or wherever you work, clinic.
Right.
If you do a cash pay clinic, that's a ton of marketing for yourself and grassroots effort. So I think networking is incredibly important. And then, like you said, Angela, just like putting in the time and hours really on the field.
Yep.
And what would you say top 3 qualities, kind of to piggyback off of that, Angela, the manager, what would you say are the top 3 qualities that you look for in a new grad that you're trying to hire?
Somebody that's motivated, willing to learn, someone that, is jumps on every opportunity. If we've got a community event to do, they're like, I'm there, I'll do it. Somebody that's just really eager and open to learning. And it's not just the openness to learning, it's when you are mentored, you actually utilize the skills. So many people have, you can't come in with like a one-track mind. You have to be open. I've taken classes from Maitland to NAIOMT to, I even did this certification from a posturologist out of Italy. Like, I have learned and taken bits and pieces to mold all the things that I have together. And I've been very open to different techniques. I've learned from chiropractors. I've learned from DOs. I've learned from, a ton of different professionals. You just have to be super open and then actually utilize the techniques, see what works for you, find your way and find your methods that you feel comfortable with and are successful for you. But I really like the young therapist that comes in super motivated and willing to learn and eager and willing to go above and beyond without being asked, really.
Yeah, that'll definitely set you up for success, having the grit, having the intrinsic drive to be the best therapist you can possibly be.
Yep.
For sure. And we are kind of getting towards the end here. So does anyone else have any other questions they would like to ask? I think we might have more in the chat. Let's see. Just Margot saying we'll be wrapping up in about 5 minutes. Does anyone else have any other questions before we wrap up tonight? Angela, any last words of advice for the crowd?
I think that's been enough.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you sharing all of your insight and knowledge with us. And, it's just so inspiring to hear about your journey that you've had over the years, and just all your accomplishments are incredibly admirable. And I think the thing that I admire most is the fact that you did all this with 3 kids. So very inspiring. And thank you so much for spending the time tonight here with us when you have many other things on your plate.
That's all good. It actually was a night where we didn't have baseball, so.
Oh, wow.
Timing.
We will be having more, everyone who joined tonight, thank you so much. We will be having more of these webinar series with both the sports SIG and upper extremities SIG. So look out for that. We'll be sending out information in the emails. And if you have any ideas that you would like us to present on, please feel free to share those ideas on our social media pages. And if you are not currently a member of either SIG, please feel free to join. We have a Facebook page for the sports SIG, and then Austin or Margo, I don't know if you want to add anything as far as just exposure for our SIGs. Well,
yeah, so oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, just
Sorry,
thank you,
awkward
everyone.
delay.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And next up, our next webinar will be in June, and we'll be talking about differential diagnosis of shoulder pain in the overhead athlete with Angela again. She graciously offered to return. So we will see everyone in June. Austin, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add to what's been said. It's been great. So.
Great. So we'll be sending a survey out probably next week to everyone who attended with, just a very short survey, just asking, what you thought of this webinar so that we can make these going forward the best they can be for our members. So thank you everyone for attending. And on behalf of Courtney and Angela and Austin, have a great night.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.